The story kicks off in a pretty alarming way, introducing us to a man who's unfortunately struggling with a dark reality. Because of his condition, his arm is covered in scars. His young niece, Alpha, tries to change that reality by drawing lines between the marks with a marker, trying to make them look a little better. As a thank you, the man, named Amin, gives her a bracelet before falling into a deep sleep. Years later, Alpha is all grown up and is now 13 years old. During a party and under the influence, she decides to get a Y tattoo. Shortly after, she starts feeling really dizzy and out of it. Her friend Adrian notices she's not doing well, gets worried, and rushes over to help. She lets him take her back home. When they get there, her mother is not happy at all to see her in that state and shoves her straight into the bathtub to wash off the smell of the party. Alpha, confused by everything, asks her mom if she still loves her. She says she does, though she's clearly frustrated. Right then, Alpha throws up. While her mom is helping her, the girl asks if she remembers how she used to jump on her with joy every time they got home. Alpha confesses that, out of habit, she still leans back whenever she arrives, as if she's about to jump and she just doesn't know how to stop herself. At that moment, her mother discovers the tattoo on her arm and immediately slips into a panic. She frantically asks where she got it and whether the needle was clean or if it had been shared with anyone else. Alpha admits it was done with just some random object at the party, so her mother starts cleaning the wound right away. She tells her that they'll go to the hospital the next day to get a tetanus shot, though she mentions it is still too early to run any other tests. When Alpha asks what kind of tests she means, her mother avoids answering and walks away. That night, Alpha overhears her mother saying she is exhausted and can't handle the family's non-stop problems anymore. Overwhelmed by guilt, the girl decides to run away. She puts on her shoes, grabs a jacket and a bag, and climbs out the window. Outside, the wind is howling, and the building's scaffolding shakes dangerously. Alpha struggles to stay on her feet, but drops to her knees while trying to reach the stairs. Terrified, she begins screaming for her mother. Her mother rushes in, leans out the window, and tells her to keep eye contact as she reaches out for her hand. Very carefully, Alpha edges forward until her mother manages to grab her and pull her back inside. They both land safely on the bed, hugging tightly while Alpha apologizes, and her mother calms her down by singing softly. The next day, Alpha is taken to the hospital, but she feels a deep fear about getting the vaccine. The nurse tells her it's normal, nobody likes shots, and advises her to just imagine she isn't there. However, Alpha replies that she can't do that, since she's fully aware that she really is there. Then, the nurse suggests that maybe she can do it herself. Surprised, Alpha says that's crazy, but the nurse insists on showing her how. She preps the shot and walks her through the steps. It's actually pretty simple. Alpha asks if her mom is cool with her doing this, but the nurse says her mom doesn't need to know. Alpha gets scared, arguing that if they're keeping it a secret, it must be something serious and dangerous. Seeing her panic, the nurse corrects herself and says that, yes, they'll tell her. So, Alpha takes the needle, closes her eyes, and injects herself. To her surprise, she barely feels a tiny pinch. The nurse puts on a bandage, and Alpha asks again about the test results, but is told she'll have to wait 2 weeks. Intrigued, she asks why, and the nurse tells her about a new virus spreading all over the world. A cold fear washes over Alpha. She's only 13. After that, we see a flashback where her mother is working as a nurse. Walking through the hallways, she notices that last night's food is still sitting on a cart and scolds another nurse for not handing it out. The nurse fires back that this isn't even her floor and that the rest of the staff simply walked out. She explains she's been doing everything possible to help the patients, but there's only so much she can do on her own. Even so, the mother decides to personally take over the meal distribution. As she does, she apologizes to the patients because the food got cold, reassuring each of them that the doctor will be arriving shortly. That's when the terrifying truth comes to light. A new virus is slowly turning people into marble, even making them cough up dust. In the very last bed of the ward, one patient has already completed the transformation and is dead. Her mother, resigned to the situation, unplugs the machines and covers the body with a sheet. Back in the present, Alpha returns to school after her hospital visit, showing up late to her English class. The teacher recites a poem and asks the students if anyone can explain what exactly is going on with the narrator. One of the kids answers that it's something like an existential crisis, and the teacher tells him he's right, urging him to keep going. The boy mentions that the narrator cries a lot and calls out to God, so the teacher asks if he understands why the narrator is weeping. The kid says he doesn't know and even mocks the teacher, suggesting the guy in the poem might have a different orientation. To the student, the way the poem was read felt normal. It was just a quiet beach with no one around. However, the teacher points out that the narrator is actually surrounded by waves and plenty of of sand. The student fires back that that's just the teacher's take, and they don't have to see eye to eye. He comments that the teacher reads in a weird way and makes fun of him in front of everyone, but the teacher chooses not to say a word. Meanwhile, we see that Alpha's tattoo wound is itching constantly from an infection, and she can't stop scratching over the bandage. Right then, the teacher asks Alpha to hand in her assignment for the poem projection. As Alpha hands it over, her wound starts dripping blood all over the papers. Even though her classmates start whispering, the teacher doesn't notice anything at first and asks for her take on the reading. He's actually surprised by the depth of her ideas, but the moment is ruined when the others point out that her arm wound won't stop bleeding. Concerned, the teacher asks what happened, and she defensively says she didn't do anything, claiming someone just drew on her. The teacher, skeptical, asks if they used a pen, but she admits it was a needle. Hearing this, he orders her to go straight to the medical center. Alpha grabs her stuff, noticing how the other students back away from her. Adrian decides to follow her, and they end up smoking in the bathroom. He doesn't get why the wound is still bleeding so much, but Alpha just brushes it off. Suddenly, she hears a strange whistling sound, though her friend doesn't hear a thing. Spooked, she drops her cigarette and shuts the door. Even though Adrian thinks she's just seeing ghosts, they stare at each other with such tension that they end up kissing. But when things start moving too fast, Alpha stops him, making it clear she doesn't want her first time to be in some gross bathroom and insists they use protection. Adrian, feeling embarrassed, admits he hadn't even thought about that, turning away as he's left alone in the bathroom. Later, upon arriving home, Alpha gets spooked seeing the place a mess, especially her mother's office. Suddenly, she hears a noise and follows it to her bedroom, where she finds an unknown man. Not recognizing him, she panics and runs to the kitchen to hide. When the man comes looking for her, Alpha grabs a knife to defend herself, convinced he's an intruder. When he opens the door, he tells her there's no one else in the house, to which she replies that she's calling the cops. The guy tells her if she does that, her mother will surely be thrilled, asking if her mom didn't tell her he was spending the night. Alpha demands to know who he is. He tries to calm her down, claiming he's her Uncle Amin. He knew crashing in her room was a bad idea, but there are no boundaries in that family. Alpha, still skeptical, snaps back that her mother only has sisters. He calmly replies that just because she hasn't told her about him doesn't mean he doesn't exist. Faced with this, Alpha asks for the names of her grandparents. He answers correctly, without hesitation. The tension in the air is thick. Alpha watches him with suspicion, still gripping the knife, unable to decide whether to trust him or call the cops as the weight of family secrets begins to surface. Even so, Alpha still doesn't trust him and threatens him when he tries to grab some food. Amin tries to jog her memory by talking about the times he used to babysit her and take her to the beach, but she still doesn't recognize him. Suddenly, she notices something weird. His body is shaking uncontrollably. He tells her that he's not in the best shape and admits that his body is falling apart. Alpha keeps grilling him about why she's never seen him before, which makes Amin lose his cool. He just grabs the knife right out of her hands and heads to the living room to watch TV. Alpha follows him again, knife in hand, not letting her guard down for a second, until her mom walks in and confirms that this man is indeed her brother. She apologizes for not giving Alpha a heads up that her uncle would be staying with them, figuring they'd recognize each other right away. Then she tells Alpha to give him a kiss hello, but Alpha refuses. Her mother forces her to do it, reminding her of her manners. Annoyed, Alpha complains about Amin taking over her room, but her mom won't let him sleep on the couch. She tells Alpha she can bunk with her if she wants, which sends Alpha storming out of the room in a rage, while the siblings laugh at her rebellious attitude. In a flashback, we see her mother coming home from work and finding her brother unconscious on the stairs. She drags him into the apartment and starts performing CPR, while her own mother desperately splashes water on him. The old woman is convinced the red wind is blocking his breathing, but Alpha's mother stops her, warning that she might drown him by clinging to such superstitions. Shortly after, a cousin walks in and leads the lady away, explaining that he had personally trashed all of Amin's needles, so he must have scored some new ones elsewhere. The cousin tells her to stop, saying there's nothing left to do, and that deep down, she knows it. However, she ignores him and keeps working on her brother with pure determination. After several minutes of intense tension, Amin finally comes to. Back in the present, Alpha is at the hospital waiting for her tests. She's shocked to see her English teacher there with his boyfriend, whose body has already partially turned into marble. Alpha can't stop staring until they decide to move to another spot. Even then, she continues to watch him closely, prompting the sick man to ask why she's looking at him like that. Without any filter, Alpha tells him that he looks beautiful, which sparks an unexpected laugh in the middle of the room. At that moment, the nurse asks Alpha to come with her and checks if she's ready for the blood test. Alpha admits she's not, but she knows she has to get it over with anyway. The next day at school, things get tense when Adrian's girlfriend intentionally throws a ball at her with way too much force just to mess with her. When Alpha throws it back, the girl catches it, but notices a blood stain left on her arm. Alpha realizes her wound is bleeding again and tries to hide it, but the teacher steps in, tells her to go rest, and tosses the ball into the trash using a towel for protection. Later on, Alpha confronts Adrian and asks if his girlfriend knows about what happened between them. He says no, but immediately starts grilling her about her injury, clearly worried that he might have caught something if she's sick. Alpha reminds him that he's known her forever, but he snaps back that it doesn't matter. Knowing someone doesn't mean they can't infect you. He keeps demanding the truth, and his nervous persistence finally pushes her over the edge. Alpha snaps at him and storms out of the classroom, leaving him behind as she runs off. A while later, the family is driving in the car, and Amin tries to reach out to Alpha, but she finds him annoying and ignores him. Amin tells his sister that it's boiling hot in the car, and she explains that the AC is broken, so he should just roll down the window. Her brother then mentions he knows a guy who can install a new unit for a really cheap price. When they get to his mother's building, they run into two addicts on the stairs. Alpha's mom warns them to stay away from her brother, and they keep going, ignoring the needles scattered on the floor. Once inside the apartment, the whole family gathers to get ready for dinner. Alpha's grandmother, an indigenous woman, speaks in her native language, so Alpha can't understand a word she says. The family meal is lively and loud. At one point, her mother starts singing along with her sisters, making Alpha feel totally cringed out. While everyone is distracted, Amin slips away into a back room. Her mother notices and goes after him. Alpha, feeling worried, decides to follow them and finds both of them on the floor. Amin is in bad shape after using, and his mother has to give him an emergency injection just to keep him alive. Once she notices her daughter standing there, she slams the door shut so she doesn't have to see any more of it. A little later, the grandmother comes looking for them, but Alpha lies and tells her they're both asleep and shouldn't be bothered. The old woman makes a sign of a blessing on her face before pulling her into a hug. In another flashback, we see the total chaos outside the hospital. A desperate crowd is trying to force their way in, but the place is already at capacity. The security guard can't hold them back and explains they can't take any more patients. However, the crowd forces Alpha's mother to witness the severity of the situation. People are literally turning into marble right before her eyes. Faced with this, she gives in. She agrees to let the sick patients in, but insists that their family members have to stay outside. Back in the present, Alpha is in the locker room getting ready for swim class, but her classmates are blocking the exit. They accuse her of being sick and contagious. Alpha denies it, but nobody buys it. Out of desperation, she takes extreme action to push her way through and manages to get out. Once she's in the pool, she tries to act like everything is normal, but her classmates keep harassing her, shoving her underwater over and over again. After an intense struggle, Alpha manages to break free, but as she looks back to keep an eye on her attackers, she misses the wall and smacks her head. The wound opens up again, staining the pool water red. Panic takes over, and the students scramble to get out of the pool in horror. That night, Alpha can't sleep. Amin won't stop shaking and moaning in pain. She tries to help by covering him with a blanket and rubbing his body, but nothing works. She decides to go get her mother, but Amin stops her, leaning on her as if begging for comfort. Alpha holds him, and they both end up sobbing together. Later, Alpha hides away in her mother's office, where she cries herself to sleep. Sometime later, her mother is called to school to discuss her daughter's situation. Before they go in, she warns Alpha not to say a single word about Amin. Facing the principal, her mother tries to justify the bleeding by claiming it's normal after the medical tests, but he explains that the students are terrified of catching something and the parents are putting on the pressure. The principal demands to see the results as soon as they're ready, which deeply annoys her mother, who insists that everything is under control. Meanwhile, a terrified Alpha whispers that they'll kill her if she stays there, but her mother simply ignores her. When English class starts, the atmosphere is incredibly tense. Nobody is happy to see the teacher, but Alpha notices something much worse. He's clearly been crying. Even though he tries to push through and lead the class like normal, he can't keep it together and ends up breaking down in front of everyone, making it clear that his partner has passed away. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Alpha's mother receives the test results, and they come back negative. Still, she can't find any peace of mind. She suspects the test was done way too early and wants to run it again, totally ignoring ignoring another doctor who tells her she's overreacting. After school, Alpha goes to the hospital, and her mother decides to examine her personally. Suddenly, Alpha starts coughing and feels like she can't breathe. Panic completely takes over. She's having a full-blown anxiety attack. Her mother lays her down and tries to calm her, but she gets spooked when she sees something on the girl's lips. For a split second, she fears the worst, but it's just saliva, not dust. Even so, she makes a drastic call. Alpha is staying under observation all day. That night, her mother becomes obsessed with studying the disease. She's on the verge of nodding off, but forces herself to stay awake, even accidentally cutting her finger with a knife. That sharp sting of pain is the only thing that snaps her back to reality. Later, she goes to see her family and notices something unsettling. None of them can sleep. Her mother sits down next to Alpha, pricks her own finger with a needle, and then presses her wound against her daughter's. She whispers that if anything happens to her child, it has to happen to her too. She keeps their fingers pressed together and kisses them, sealing a silent pact of shared fate. In another flashback, her mother walks through a hospital hallway lined with dead bodies. When she reaches her patients and checks the beds, she completely loses all hope in the face of the tragedy. Back in the present, Amin tries to get some exercise, but collapses within minutes due to his weakness. When he starts making noise, Alpha tells him to keep it down, reminding him that her mom is seeing patients in her office. Amin asks why she isn't in school, and Alpha coldly replies that she's sick. Then, with zero filter, she asks him why he's still living with them. To her, being an addict is a choice, not a disease, and she tells him he's too much of a coward to just end his life. Amin, visibly upset, snaps back that he'd give anything not to be stuck there with her at that moment. A flashback reveals something shocking. Amin actually had the mysterious disease, too. Her mother is shown taking blood samples and scraping the rocky formations on his back while he begs to see little Alpha, but she flat out refuses to let him. Suddenly, his hardened skin starts to bleed, but it's not normal blood, it's red dust. When her mother tries to take another sample, the skin literally crumbles away, and Amin screams in agony. Desperate, she tries to bandage his back to keep it from falling apart, but he tells her it's already too late. Back in the present, her mother examines Alpha again and forces her to chug massive amounts of water, so much that Alpha nearly drowns. Amin, completely losing it, starts speaking in his mother's native language, calling his sister out for doing the exact same thing their mom used to do with the red wind. To him, it makes zero sense for an atheist doctor to fall back on old superstitions. The argument between the siblings gets heated while Alpha watches, unable to understand what they're saying. Suddenly, Amin explodes. He angrily recalls how his own family almost drowned him in the past because of those beliefs. In the middle of the fight, Alpha manages to catch one unsettling phrase: Red Demon. Her mother, furious, threatens to kick him out of the house if he keeps talking about that. Amin, out of his mind, decides to leave on his own, but his mother stops him, mockingly questioning why he suddenly seems to care about his future. In the middle of the chaos, Alpha asks why they won't just let him go, but her mother loses it and screams at her, saying she's sick of her always causing trouble. Fed up, Alpha demands that she get out of her room. Her mother obeys, but she locks the door from the outside as she leaves. That same night, Alpha wakes up terrified as her window shatters and the ceiling begins to cave in on her. The furniture gets crushed, everything collapses, and the ceiling keeps dropping until it's almost touching her. Desperate, she tries to push it back, but she can't move it. She starts running out of air, her body shaking uncontrollably until the truth comes out. It's all a nightmare triggered by a massive panic attack. Amin appears by her side and gently calms her down. He then opens the window and convinces her to run away with him. Minutes later, they are both running free through a field, laughing and acting like they don't have a care in the world. Later on, they hit a club where Amin lets Alpha smoke and drink. In the middle of the chaotic scene, a woman partially turned into marble dances on the bar, catching Alpha's eye for a second before she joins her uncle on the dance floor. But something starts going wrong. Amin's arm locks up in the air, and he has to force it back down. Then his other arm does the same thing. His body begins to fail and twitch in a strange, disturbing way. Alpha gets really worried, but she ends up losing him in the crowd. Desperate, she searches the whole place until she finally finds him in a hallway, using illegal substances. Horrified by what she sees, she decides to wait outside until he comes out. When he finally shows up, Amin is walking fast and looking completely out of his mind. Alpha tries to figure out what's going on with him, but he shoves her away and coldly reminds her that he's not her father. Without looking back, he takes off on his own, leaving Alpha totally lost and stranded in the middle of the night. A few minutes later, Alpha shows up at Adrian's house looking for some comfort. He confirms that his test results also came back negative, and the tension between them builds up fast. They start getting close, but right in the heat of the moment, Alpha has a sudden panic attack and clings to him. When she looks at his shoulder, she goes into total shock. Adrian has the exact same tattoo she does. Desperate, she demands an explanation right then and there. He confesses that he got the tattoo right after she did, but never said a word because he was terrified of being infected by sharing the needle and didn't want to be another target for bullying at school. Even though he tries to apologize for not being there for her, Alpha just walks out. In a flashback, we see her mother working a night shift at the hospital, trying to call home with no luck. She then calls her own mother to ask if she's seen Amin, who was supposed to be watching Alpha. Amin's mother deeply distrusts him, but his sister insists that he has changed. In the present, Alpha catches a bus and runs into Amin. She confesses that she's terrified of being sick, but he tries to reassure her, saying that if she were, she'd already be showing clear signs of the disease. Then he makes a strange request. He asks her not to wake him up if he happens to fall asleep. After getting off the bus, Amin tells her to wait while he buys something to counteract the effects of what he took earlier. Alpha stands there staring at the ocean until she hears a noise. When she turns around, she sees him injecting his arm again. Panicking, she sprints toward a nearby hotel to find help. The past and the present start to blur together. In another flashback, her mother arrives desperately at a hotel where she finds a young Alpha asleep and Amin using drugs. Furious, she hits him, causing the little girl to wake up crying. Her mother takes her to the bathroom to calm her down and tells her to stay put. She then confronts Amin, unaware that Alpha is spying on them. They argue bitterly, and he admits he doesn't want to end up in the hospital like the people suffering from the marble sickness. He wants to stay with her, but his sister refuses. She doesn't want him near her daughter or to risk her social standing. In the middle of this high tension, Amin tries to inject himself with a hand that is shaking uncontrollably. Her mother, despite everything, steps in to help him so he doesn't hurt himself, eventually breaking down emotionally. Back in the present, Alpha wakes up in the hotel room and finds Amin and her mother on the other bed. Suddenly, she remembers that moment from her childhood when she drew on her own arm. Amin opens his hand, but there's nothing there. Even so, Alpha takes it as he loses consciousness. Her mother wakes up in a panic, ready to start CPR. Alpha tries to stop her, reminding her that he didn't want to be saved, but her mother won't listen and injects him with something to keep him alive. The images of the past and the present blur together. Through her tears, Alpha asks her uncle for forgiveness for not being able to respect his choice. In one final flashback, we see Amin in the hospital, his body completely covered in marble. Her mother is still taking care of him, but he's so consumed by pain that he just wants her to let him go. Amin asks her not to wake him up, takes one last breath, and dies. Her mother finally respects his wish and lies down next to him, holding him tight as she breaks down in tears. In the present, her mother and Alpha are all alone in the hotel, and the truth is finally revealed. Amin actually died when Alpha was only 5 years old. Everything they experienced was a manifestation of the trauma and unresolved grief they carried. All this time, what Alpha was seeing wasn't real. It was a hallucination, a manifestation of her deep-seated fear of ending up just like him. Her mother knew it and decided to play along just to keep from hurting her even more. She tells Alpha they can take Amin home, but for the first time, Alpha says no. She's finally ready to let him go. That moment of acceptance completely breaks her mother, who can't hold back the tears. Alpha pulls her into a tight hug and whispers that it's finally over, starting to sing softly to her, just like her mother used to do for her. Later, in the car, they both watch as the heavy wind sweeps the red dust across the highway, a haunting reminder of everything they've been through. When they get home, something symbolic and devastating happens. Amin's figure gets out of the car too. Alpha watches him one last time as his form slowly disintegrates in her mother's arms until he vanishes completely. Her mother collapses, consumed by a grief she no longer has to hide. And just like that, between loss, fear, and final acceptance, the story comes to an end.